Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
absolutely impossible season.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We'll go bust. We got our elbows out.
Ronar takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Yarda Watmere is your champion.
Welcome. Here we are. Welcome to PSGL PCF3, where it's time for round 2 here in China. So we had a very thrilling start to the season last week in Britain. We all start for tonight. My name is Sky, and today joined in the commentary box by no other than the legendary TK.
Legendary is a little bit far. Let's calm down with the glazing right from the very start. But no, it's so good to be back, and it feels like somewhat of a homecoming for me here, starting off in PCF3, and really looking forward to some good action tonight.
Well, we should definitely get some good action. We had some great action already last week, but before we dive into that, of course, a little bit more also for you, because you're making quite the return back to us again, and definitely to F126.
Absolutely. It's really an interesting set of regulations that we have inside of F126, and I think the drivers have taken to it really well. And as we head into this 11-race calendar, there is lots to play for. Round 1 gave us some good racing out at Silverstone, and actually as we head to China tonight, I think we're in for very much of the same.
Exactly. Now that it's now time to move over to the standings, so you guys have a little bit of an idea of what went down last week. So putting you over through that, championship leader was also the pole sitter of last week, Rafael Kuntz. He got pole position by a 10.5, which is quite the margin. Won the race by about a second margin over on Redmers, who started on P5 but got the podium result, as well as Wojtek Steg, who started in P7 and finished in P3. Rafael now leads championship 17 points with that extra point from pole position. And if I look to the other race results, Lucas Beisner finishing 4th, starting on P9, so that's a great result from him. Carlos Galindo started P15, finished in 7th. And Takubi, he got a penalty removed, 10-second time penalty, I think, for an illegal overtake. He got that removed, so he moves back into the points in P8, so that is 3 points for him. But yeah, Rafael Kuntz leads the championship ahead of Redmers, and then is Wojtek Steg. And after that, someone you are very familiar with, TK, Lucas Beisner.
Absolutely. I've watched him race in other competitions and other series, and he is one of those drivers that on a good day will be able to put on such a fantastic performance. But, you know, P4, it may seem like it's a uncharacteristic result. It is still one step off the podium, and if he wants to continue that, as he means to go on, if you want to win a championship, you have to be consistent. It's not about winning a race every single week in, week out. It is getting those consistent results, and I think this is where we're looking to start seeing consistency tonight.
Let's hope so indeed. When it comes to the drivers that we have, it looks like we have 3 stand-in drivers for tonight. We have Noah Raza stepping in the V-Carb. We have Carlos Galindo making a second appearance in the Haas, and Valentina Labella, who is stepping into the Red Bull. I cannot see exactly who he's replacing. tonight. And it looks like my mic decided to mute itself again. So to repeat that, we have 17 drivers tonight. A couple of drivers couldn't make it. Those drivers are Claudio Diaz, Max van der Geest, Victor Garcia, Scott Holmes, Ivanus Krieg, Daniel Kaya, Franek Yaziorni, and Jeremy Gallané. And yeah, the 3 stand-in drivers, just to repeat, that are racing: Noah Raza, Carlos Galindo, and Valentina Labella. Noah in the V-Carb, Carlos Galindo in the Haas, and Valentina Labella in the Red Bull, all on top of my head. Quite a packed grid, nonetheless, even though we have 17 drivers.
Absolutely. It's always going to be a very competitive Series F3 because you've got that sort of middle ground. It's the drivers starting to make their way up into the higher tiers, into your F2s and F1s, and actually this is kind of the staking ground of their careers. They've competed in lower divisions, they're in this kind of middle ground now, but it is so much to prove now because the concentration of these drivers is where it really starts to get real.
It does indeed, and in the meantime you can see us loading into our qualifying session out here, the Shanghai International Circuit, which will be the scene for round 2. That long backstretch, we already talked about a little bit before TK, but as you mentioned, we'll probably see a little bit less overtaking there, as it was mainly focused here in the previous iterations. We're expecting a little bit more overtakes throughout the circuit now with the battery usage, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's one that has really tended itself to previous regulations of cars, because as you head into these 2026, the battery burns that much quicker. The straight line mode, yes, it's still in effect down towards turns 14, but actually when we get to this stage of race, when we get to the back stretch, they'll have burnt a lot trying to make overtakes in the second sector, most notably, so they will be somewhat recharging, relying on that straight line mode a lot more. And then we'll kind of see the recharge into turn 1 once again. So lots of different places, I think we'll start to see overtakes here in China.
Exactly. Now let us move over to the full race view so you can get a good look at what we're all watching tonight. 4 straight line modes, the ones that TK was just speaking of: 1 on the start finish straight, 1 at the end of sector 1, third one at the end of sector 2, and then of course finally the backstretch marked in purple at the bottom right hand of your screen. Now it looks like one of the, I think it's a Williams of Tope that is first out on track. He indeed is, so watch him go round, and then in a moment he will be the first driver to settle up.
He absolutely will, and just an opportunity to get your tyres up to temperature and make sure your setup is working appropriately. Not quite the Inters-fueled race fest that we see at the start of maybe some higher divisions or some other league racing, but at the moment all of the drivers out on a soft compound of tyre. They'll have the opportunity to test the straight line modes, get an understanding of where they are, but of course it won't be the first time they've run this circuit. They'll have done it multiple times over the course of the week, with preparations going into not only qualifying but then race trim as well.
And in the meantime, Tope is making his way out to the backstretch. He has been overtaken by one of the Mercedes drivers. That has to be Cloud, because there is only one Mercedes currently out there on track. Still 11 teams, 16 drivers that we currently have, but we heard that Takubi might be a little bit late, so perhaps we will see him as a late join-in. Now Cloud is making his way around the final couple corners of this 16-corner track. We'll go on board with him. TK, I know it's early back here, but take it away and let's go on board.
Here we go then, on board with the Mercedes of Cloud down towards the opening corner. They'll have the opportunity to try and break this down, and in towards the opening 4 corners, you can see just throwing the car right and then immediately left again. We'll keep an eye on the all-important battery usage burning on the way down towards turn 5 and turn 6. The little kink to the right-hand side before going to lift and coast, about the 100-metre board, really aggressively throwing that car into the right-hander of turn 6, and a very acute corner and very much a hairpin as well. But through the second sector, an opportunity here to recharge the battery, a little bit of lift and coast. They have got some traffic in front of them. That is one of the Scuderia Ferrari cars who's out on circuit. It won't be Oliver Knott. They have started a lap just behind them, so that will be Lawrence Lowers. Makes their way out of the way very nicely and up towards turn 11 here, where we will quite possibly see some overtaking opportunities start to present themselves later on in the lap. If you keep an eye on that delta, or the green and yellow bar at the bottom of your screen, you can see how much battery is being burnt there by Cloud at the exit of turn 13. The straight line mode will open on the run down towards turn 14, practically using every ounce of battery available in that Mercedes-AMG Petronas car, and again slamming on the anchors, little bit wide into the apex of that corner, and that will cost him a couple of tenths here and there, but nothing to be concerned about this early on. Past the overtake detection point, round the final corner of 16, get the wings open once again, and here comes the banker to beat a 1:30.736.
And in the meantime, we're watching Tope come across the line. Also in a 1:37, he's just 200ths slower than the current fastest lap time. Oliver Nutt coming through in a 1:30.9 and was about to switch over to him. Let's see, Valentino Labella is now making his way towards the backstretch. A couple of drivers just ahead of him, Haas and a Williams by the looks of it. But here is the Red Bull man as he's approaching the heartbreaking zone of the hairpin. See if he can take that a little bit closer than Cloud. He indeed can. Nicely taken through that hairpin. Now making his way then to the final set of corners. Take a lot of speed, a lot of inner curb, and then push it out on the exit. Across the line he goes. And Labella is P4 for now. Nowhere, at least nowhere near the 37s that we've seen so far with Cloud and Tope. After that, a couple of 9s and even some 31s coming through, with now Diego Ferrer in P6.
One driver just to keep an eye on, Noah Raza, had gone purple in the middle sector, invalidated in fact coming out of the final corner of turn 16, which is where it all went wrong for the V-Carb at the moment. They're down in 14th place, yet to set a lap time on the table, and that is, well, it explains that. They'll have not only invalidated that current run, but most likely the current run they're on at the moment, as Lucas Beisner now goes fastest by 0.04 of a second, putting himself on provisional pole position.
Yeah, and here comes pole sitter from last week, Rafael Conci gets to P4. Not a bad lap at all, but I wanted to see Laurens Laus, who's now making his way out for the first set of runs, but he can't do better than a 1:31.2, currently putting him in P12. So we have our first lot of laps in. We saw Noah Raza invalidating after what looked to be a pretty promising run, the invalidation out of turn 16, but so far Lucas Beisner being the quickest out there, 0.04 of a second quicker than Cloud, who TK was also very, very fast in qualifying last week in Silverstone.
Absolutely, and qualifying is a really unique skill, I find, when it comes to F1 esports and also sim racing as a whole general term. There is very much a difference between being quick in race pace and being quick over a singular lap, because you have to be 100% locked in over, let's say, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on the circuit. And that's a completely different skill to being at 80% race pace for a couple of hours. And the drivers that can do it quite often do incredibly well at it. We're seeing the likes at the top, Lucas Beisner, Cloud as well, who are a good 200ths of a second ahead of the likes of Tope and Raphael as well. So lots to look forward to as we head into the rest of this qualifying. We're only 6.5 minutes in. There's still 11.5 minutes to go of qualifying. I'll tell you what as well, I have seen already the Ventari team reps already in the YouTube live chat, which is fantastic to see as always.
Definitely great to see indeed. Now, in a moment ago, I thought that I saw a Haas leaving pit lane, but by the looks of it, everyone is at least staying put until we prepare ourselves for the second runs. There's now Williams exiting pit lane. Before we saw Tope was the first to leave pit lane, but looks like there is at least one car ahead of him, and that is the Ferrari of, is it Oliver Nutt? It is not Oliver Nutt. It's
the Audi.
It's the Audi. Indeed, the colors are still a little bit confusing, but it is Dennis Langrock who is the first one out there on track in that lovely looking Audi. Really like the livery of this TK.
I really like it. It's grown on me, I think, as the season's gone on. I didn't like it when it launched. I didn't like it under studio lighting. I thought it was really basic, something that someone had made in MS Paint. But as we got into the season, as the logos got added on, the sponsorships got added on, the Revolut, the BP, all those logos get added to the car, I think it becomes a Formula 1 car. And in my mind, it looks stunning now on circuit. I've completely done a 180 and changed my mind on it.
Yeah, I think the only thing it's missing is on the red orangey, just a little logo there. I think that would fully finish it off, but definitely a car that is starting to come alive with its sponsorships. Let's hope that their driver can also come alive in this next lap. Dennis Langrock currently on a 131.1 in P10, as he will be the first to set the second lap. Noah Raza is also out. The man that was so fast in his first run, the only driver yet to set a lap time, and also Cloud, the man that set the benchmark early on with Tope, but was just beaten by Beisner to that provisional pole. Still 9 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, but I think we have lots of improvements and pole switching to go.
Certainly so. Looking at drivers up and down the field on their outlaps. We've got a few that are remaining in pit road, so wanting to go out when the track has a little less traffic on it. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. We'll leave that verdict up slightly later on in the afternoon as we do watch Langrock making his way around the final corner to start off what will be the second run of the afternoon. They'll have a Red Bull that pull out of the garage immediately in front of them. They'll catch up through the first sector. Hopefully, though, that Red Bull is feeling interesting and does make a way to pull out of the way of the Audi.
Yeah, we're now on board with Dennis Langrock. Has to go for a 4/10 of improvement as he took a very short line there at the end of Sector 1. Let's see if he can already get an improvement of about a 10th in that first sector. It's only 21 thousandths of a second, and with a 23.6. I don't think he's too far off of the other drivers that we've seen so far. The main improvement will have to be found in that second sector, that twisty second sector, where you have to manage that battery quite well and also have to keep in mind which gear that you're running through. So a lot of drivers keep it long in 6th, then go back to 4th, and then for the combination that we just saw Langrock come through, go down to 3rd. And in that middle sector, indeed up by a 10th and a half, so pretty decent improvement so far, TK, but doesn't seem to be enough to get anywhere near the pole sitter so far.
Not at the moment. He's got to make a good improvement through this third and final to have a chance at provisional pole position. It was personal best in the first and the second for Langrock at the moment, but they're still half a tenth or so off the back in each and every sector. And of course, those add up as we get later into the qualifying session. The track continues to develop. It's a lovely 30 degrees track temperature at the moment, 21 degrees in the air, so a light jacket sort of afternoon here in Shanghai. But the Audi rounds the final corner. Can they try and jump up from where they are in P10 at the moment? They'll cross the line. They can go faster, and it is only 4th place, so they'll be hoping for a little bit more. But of course, they still have the ability to go for at least one more run.
Yeah, but that was a big improvement down in that 3rd sector. A 10th and a half he managed to gain as Toppe now moves to the top of the timing table with a 10th gained on Beisner. Cloud was on for a 37,000 improvement in that middle sector. So now, a little bit slidey coming out of that hairpin. But if he can make up for as much as an improvement in the final sector as the other drivers are able to do, then we might see him jump to the top of the timing table again. Across the line he goes, but he loses quite a bit of time there in that hairpin and stays put in P3 for now. Let's see, Marzioano has come through nicely in P6 in the meantime. Let's move over to Oliver Knott, but he is not on for a push lap. Carlos Galindo is though, and he is now at the hairpin.
Absolutely is, and we'll see what they're able to try and pull off at this moment in time. We'll keep an eye on the Haas driver up towards the line then. The final corner will elude them nice and calmly through there, not extending track limits through 16. Rather, Carlos gains 1 position just above Oliver Knott, making themselves 8th fastest overall. Just some interesting information on Toppe's fastest lap there. It wasn't even a personal best in the first sector, purple in the second, and a personal best in the third. So had all 3 colours over the course of that singular lap, and we were talking about this earlier in terms of a championship, but actually it's even more important when we get to qualifying as well, as we do see Lucas Beisner now go fastest, 1:35.39. It's all about consistency over the course of a lap. It's not about setting purple sectors necessarily.
Now, and as they say in the chat, up the Beisner, he is up a 10th on the entire pack, much faster than Toppe and the other drivers who have yet to set an improvement in their second run. Rafael Kunz was just up marginally through that middle sector, and he's hoping to get more of an improvement in that final sector to at least move himself to about P4, P5. And he comes through in P6, a slight improvement, but not as much as he was hoping for. Giovanni Ken has also made a good improvement in the meantime. We didn't see him come through, but he is now in P3. Noah Razas at his first banker in P8 with a 1:30.875. Let's see, Oliver Knott didn't go for a push lap before. I'm not sure if he's currently on for a hot lap, but I think we're nearing the end of our second runs already, TK.
We are, and we're at that stage of the afternoon where a lot of drivers, if they've done their second push run, they'll be trying to give all the beans to get back into pit road to make sure that they have ample time to get their car in, serviced, and out ready for that final run of the afternoon. You mentioned Giovanni Kennis as well, setting that time to set them 3rd fastest overall, a 1:37.18. It was a personal best in all 3 sectors for the Alpine that time out, so showing constant improvement. They just need to find that little bit extra to gain themselves about 1.8 tenths or so, which would see them up in provisional pole position. We have got just over 4.5 minutes left on our timekeeper's clock, and Oliver Knott being well and truly held up by his teammate who's trying to get into pit road. And we have got our 17th entry, who has just joined the lobby. Tachubi joins us with a few minutes to go. If he's able to pull off pole position here, I'll be very, very impressed.
Yeah, and I think you won't be the only one who will be very impressed with that. Let's hope he can get a great final run on the board, as we have Tope already leaving pit lane for what is going to be his third and final run. I wanted to point out something real quick, because if we look at the podium from last week, Raphael, Retmers, and Steg, they're currently not to be found anywhere near the top 5. Well, Raphael he's in P6, but Steg's in 14th, and Retmers is currently in P15. Once again, showing how close this grid is here at PCF3, where it's anyone's game, really, and a driver that made quite the appearance indeed last week with a P4 in the race. Despite the hardships that he had to encounter throughout the race, he is currently our provisional pole sitter with a 10th up on Tope.
Absolutely, and if you look at the standings before the race got started, you'll probably be questioning why some of these drivers are kind of up and down the field, but we know this from seasons gone by, from different races that have gone by. Each driver will have, I don't want to say a preferred circuit, because I think that sounds a little bit wrong, but each driver will have circuits where they do slightly better, do slightly worse, and there'll be kind of slap-bang average circuits for a lot of drivers. And as we head through the course of this 11-race calendar, we are going to start to see more and more of those moments where maybe they can put in a little bit more practice this week. Maybe if drivers are working, then work's a little bit lighter this week, so they've got more opportunity to hop in. If they're at school and school's about to finish, then a very similar thing. We're going to see that, but it's exam season as well for a lot of drivers, so that has to be bared in mind. There's a lot of variables that go into F1 League racing and sim racing in general that happen outside of these broadcasts on a Thursday evening or whenever the shows get put out.
Exactly, and I think something that's very fair to point out is that this track probably is one of the better tracks for Beisner, who has got quite a bit of time in hand on the other drivers. Just left pit lane, but we are going to go on board with the Williams of Tope, going for his third and final run. He's currently in P2, but he's actually going for an extra warm-up lap, so cut that. We will have a little more time waiting. Haas is about to cross the start-finish line. That is Drax, but I think he's also going for a second warm-up lap, so no driver is going for a hot lap just yet, although the next Haas of Carlos Galindo might do something different, TK.
I think you're going to be very close onto that bubble, the next driver that crosses the line, because I think Carlos, it might just make it round if they go for another slow lap. The drivers in front, of course, Drax and Tope, have the opportunity to take a slow lap, get some more heat in the tyres, and actually hit the track at its potential, maximum potential operating temperature, because it'll have that development. By the look of it, though, Carlos Galindo has attacked the opening few corners as they go through 2, 3, and 4. So this will be the first proper time that we'll see set down here this afternoon, unless they try and bail out, because they'll have about 10 seconds in hand to be able to do so.
Yeah, and that looked to be a pretty solid first sector as he goes for a 23.7. Oh, that is a big moment at the start of Sector 2, and that is immediately a lap over as well, but he has got enough time in hand to start that lap again. The thing that I did notice with Galindo, even though his sector looked very, very smooth, he did not get close to the 23.6, and I believe even a 23.5 we've seen in the first sector, so he definitely can go a little bit quicker there, and some time can be found for him there, which should be able to put him into the top 5, at least for now. Another thing that I want to point out, the start of qualifying session, we saw in the YouTube chat that people were predicting the pole position time to be a 1:30.8. Now, of course, after our first driver set a time on the board, that record was already cut to pieces, but currently in a 30.5. You think we're going to go beyond the 5s and into the 4s, TK, or you think that this is about as fast as drivers can go?
I think we're going to see low 4s. I think someone's going to manage to break in. 1:30.42 is going to be my guess early on. But, of course, everybody else that is watching on YouTube, you've got about 10 seconds to let us know who you think is going to take pole position, because we want to hear from you. We always want to hear from you who you think is going to take it. Will it be Lucas Beisner? Will it be Tope? Will it be Takubi, who's setting their first lap of the afternoon after not making it into the session for the first 10 minutes? The checkered flag flies, and now we're about to find out.
Now we are about to find out indeed, and we're currently spectating provisional pole sitter Lucas Beisner. He's 71 thousandths down in that middle sector, so he's not looking to get for as much as improvement as he would have liked. Takubi is the first one to take the checkered flag, but sadly he can't get further than a P17, but thank God he was at least able to participate in this qualifying session, so he did get some practice and a time on the board. I believe next will be the Mercedes of Cloud across the line. He stays put on that banker lap. Next, we have the Ferraris and the Audis coming through. Lawrence Lawos in P10. Oliver Knott moving up to P3. Great lap from him. Next should be the Audi then, who moves over to P3. That's Dennis Langrock. Here comes Lucas Beisner. He improves as marginally as possible. 1,000 in hand. And more drivers now coming through, but a great final sector from Lucas Beisner.
Fantastic from Beisner, personal best as well for Giovanni Kennis in the first and the second. He goes third fastest here this afternoon, looking to make good improvements. Sope has got 1,000 or 10th in hand as they come through the final corner. Can't improve enough to jump up into provisional pole position. They did improve, but they'll stay second fastest for the afternoon. Oliver Knott let down by a third and final sector. It was personal best in the first, purple in the second, and the third just wasn't quite up to par. Carlos will be the last driver up towards the line, but they're not finding time, which means Lucas Beisner will be on pole here in Shanghai.
Yeah, and it looks like his second run was the run that made it all happen for him. We were expecting some faster lap times, but that does not matter. Only 2 drivers into the 0.5s, and the best one of those, of course, Lucas Beisner, who takes pole position ahead of Top 8, then it's Giovanni Kennis ahead of Diego Ferrer. P5 goes to the Audi of Dennis Langrock, then it's Oliver Knott. Championship leader Rafael Kuntz in P7, and it's Cloud, Marizuano, and Noah Raza making his first appearance of the season here in F3. Then Labella in P11 ahead of Lawrence Laos, Carlos Galindo, Wojtek Steg, Redburs 15, then it's Drax, and in 17th and final position it is Takubi. Now, before we move over to our race view, I think we have a little bit of time to take a look at the track map. Can you give us some facts about that, TK? Then I'll cue us in.
Oh, you put me on the spot here asking for facts at China, which is really interesting. But of course, we've seen the numerous straight line modes that are available for our drivers across this circuit. They will take as much advantage of them as they possibly can. We'll see a lot of overtakes in towards that second sector. Turn 6 has been quite favoured. And actually, as we head into turn 11 as well, that is going to be a very key overtake spot, as well as the usual of turn 14. We've seen drivers try and go too wide to the final corner. It doesn't always end well, but drivers might attempt it anyway. But of course, 16 corners here at China, which is Great Britain on the screen at the moment. So we'll...
Oh, I forgot to over... Oh, sorry.
But it's China. Just looked over to my other monitor and saw it was Silverstone. But, you know, fantastic circuit for racing. Really lends itself well to this generation of cars, I feel.
Yeah, well, that does explain why there was a little bit less information about that. Looks like that was the only overlay I forgot to change. But indeed, 16 corners on the Shanghai International Circuit, 3.3 miles or 5.4 kilometers. One of the Hermann Tilke design tracks, and a pit lane time loss that I have noted down of 17.2 seconds. Rather short, isn't it, TK?
It is. It's a notoriously short pit lane because actually you make your way out of turn 16, which loses not as much time as taking the corner, which is a bit of a bizarre one. It's not as tight as it used to be. It's not as dangerous as it used to be with that gravel. Of course, if you have watched Formula 1 of the late noughties, you'll remember Lewis Hamilton getting beached in there in a title charge back in the day. And of course, since then, it has been tarmacked over. So drivers like to use the extended track limits that are available to run as close to the wall, giving their engineers a bit of a heart attack, and they're spat straight out in towards the opening corner. But here we go.
There we go with 4 and 5 are at lights. And away we are for the second race of the season here at PSGL PCF3 with a great start around the outside for Beisner, as we already have a yellow flag. Not sure why we have that, but Beisner seems to keep that lead throughout the first corner. We have a lot of overtakes, 3-man wide in that long right-hander as well, where we see Langrock and Ferrer fighting tooth and nail for P4. Once again, a yellow flag as Langrock and Ferrer keep fighting for that. Redmers has managed to get the overtake onto Drax as well. Some send-ins into the end of that corner there, but no further incidents seem to be reported for now, although Drax has lost quite a bit of time, and the same could be said about Steg.
Yeah, it was Wojciech, Tachubi and Strax, who I think were all caught up at the exit of turn 5 in towards turn 6. They lost about 5 seconds to the rest of the pack. Drax has come off worse, as they're about 5 seconds off the back of Redmers as well in P14. But the battle up at the front is going to start to hot up here. Raphael already trying to get in the mirrors of Diego Ferrer. Up in 6th, the Cadillac wanting to try and play defensive. Laurent and Marios going side by side in turn 11 and 12 as they make their way through turns 12 and 13. The Williams becoming victorious this time around, but this does invite Carlos Galindo to try and get involved in the run down towards turn 14. They'll have the straight line mode and the battery available as the sparks do fly. These cars running incredibly low to the ground. The Ferrari now alongside the Williams. They'll try and go for a dive in towards the inside. They do hold the inside as Laurent does make that move past. They find themselves now in 11th.
Yeah, a great move from Laurens indeed, who took his time around that back stretch and managed to get the outbreak onto Marios and then got the overtake done as well. Now let's take a little look at the tires that we have, our allocations for today. Most of the drivers starting on the mediums, going for a medium hard, likely a one stop that we will see tonight. Marios, Carlos Galindo, Takubi and Drax have all opted for the hard set of compounds. That has resulted so far in the position changes of Langrock not gaining 1, Diego Ferrer losing 2, Noraza up 1 now in P9. Same can be said about Labella and Lauers. Marios already losing 3 places on those hards. Redmers has gained 1 over on Steg, and Takubi and Drax have switched places as well.
Yeah, the medium tyre is always going to be the favoured race tyre to start on here. They give you that little bit of grip in the opening sectors where this track demands grip in its hundreds and thousands, because you try and make your way through the opening sector. The snail sections is more commonly known, and the cars, if you haven't got any heat in those tyres, they do just like to run out incredibly wide through 2 and 3. But of course, as you make your way through 7, 8 and 9, it's a bit of a notorious section in itself. If you lose the downforce, then you're a little bit scuppered. The hard tyre runners, of course, will be looking to go incredibly long into this race, hoping for maybe a late race safety car, because they're not completely out of the question here.
No, definitely not out of the question indeed, and we see here the possible race strategies being provided, a 1 and a 2 stop option. Most drivers will opt for that 1 stop, and indeed, as you mentioned, TK, likely going to see some later pit stops than lap 16 or 17. I think we'll move very close to the 20s, maybe even 19 and 20. Drivers starting on the mediums, they will likely come in close to the halfway mark, maybe seeing some early pit stops in lap 11, but I think the majority will come through around lap 13 here tonight. We were watching Rafael Kuntz for a moment, who seemed to be amping up the pace onto Diego Ferrer up ahead, but he is staying put for now. Race winner from last week and our championship leader, definitely looking to get some improvements here tonight, as I do have to say it's quite cloudy out there, but I'm not expecting any rain.
No rain expected, according to our telemetry in the back end, which is lovely to see. It's a dry race here in China, which always provides some fantastic racing. You talk about Raphael going lights to flag last time out in Silverstone, which is a fantastic achievement for any racer. Of course, Lucas Biester will be looking to replicate that here this afternoon. I've seen him race once here already this week on F126 inside of the Shanghai International Circuit. He had an incredible performance, but looking to learn on maybe the mistakes that he made, maybe some early or late tyre changes, and apply them as we head into this race. It's 28 laps. I think we'll see pit stops for the mediums as early as lap 9, which actually seems incredibly early, but it is possible to take those hard tyres right until the end from that point.
That is very good to know, as well as we see in the meantime that in the last lap we saw a position change for P12. Marios and Carlos swapping places there along the rest of the line. It seems to be staying put, at least for now. We have a 14 car train going all the way from Beisner down to Redmers, and there's a 2-second gap over on Steg, another 1.5 to Takubi, and then it's 3.3 seconds to Drax, who seems to be losing a little bit more time. I wonder if he's got any damage to his car, but looks like his front wing is still intact. For Takubi, the same can be said, I guess, as Drax has now left the session, so it looks like there are some other issues at play. And Wojtek Steg is missing a front wing end plate, so that is why he is a little bit slower than we would have liked to see.
Yeah, involved in that incident right from the very start with the 3 drivers that find themselves 15th and below. And for Drax, some either hardware or technical issues, which is the bane of any sim racer's life. Ask anyone that has done a sim race ever in their life, and they'll tell you It's either their PC, their Wi-Fi, or other drivers that are the three horrible things that you can encounter when you go for the joy of sim racing. What we're watching here at the moment as well, if you are brand new to sim racing, if you're brand new to PSGL, first of all, welcome in. We hope you enjoy your stay. Second of all, this is absolutely the calm before the storm. It's not like we traditionally see inside of Formula One where moves are being made from the opening laps. This is absolutely the part where the drivers are just trying to conserve their tyres, make sure that they make it to those pit stop stages. As soon as those pit stops have happened, it is all-out war here in China.
Well, speaking of all-out war, we see a late send coming in from Not. He wanted to stay behind Langrock, but Langrock was braking just a tad too early, at least that's what he was expecting, and it meant that Oliver Not had to send it down the inside, otherwise he would have collected the back of that Audi, but could not get the car alongside too much, so the Ferrari stays put at least for now, though he is looking for a lot of moves. Look at that, a send down the inside this time again, but he will be pushed out to the outside once more, and Langrock will stay ahead for the moment being, but Oliver Knott definitely amping up the pace, and with these two moves in the making, a third one surely can't be far away.
Absolutely right. The next key overtaking spot will be potentially into turn 11. He is just reminding Dennis Langrock that he is in his mirrors, the Scuderia Ferrari car, which is so notable with inside of Formula One, and he's looking for it here. He thought about a move as they made their way through turn 8 and in towards turn 9. The double left-hander of 9 and turns 10. Not traditionally an overtaking spot, but you can, if you get a fantastic run out of this corner, up towards the heavy braking zone of 11, try and send a move down the inside. But Oliver Not just going to be patient here, and that's a mistake. That's a mistake by the Audi of Dennis Langrock. Through goes Oliver Not, and all that pressure has just paid off.
The pressure has paid off fully. Immediately, Langrock has to look in his rearview mirrors as Diego Ferrer is about to come very close, about 2/10 away. We saw that Langrock was getting very close to the back of Kenneth, and I'm not sure if he misjudged the difference between him and Kenneth, or if it just was a good old mistake coming out there in the corner. As I saw another driver go a little bit wide into the corner. I think that was Rafael, but he keeps his position in comparison to Cloud, who is behind in P8. But as it stands, with Rafael in P7, Steg down in 15 and Retmers in 14th place. 4th place last week out. Lucas Beisner currently leading the race provisionally. TK also leading the championship.
Absolutely, as it stands at the moment, and they'll be hoping to try and continue that. We're approaching about a quarter of race distance completed so far. We'll see that at the end of lap 7 as we start lap 8 here in Shanghai. And you're mentioning a few drivers just starting to kind of creep in and make mistakes. They'll be partially to do with the tyres. They are a heavy degradation circuit. It's one that demands a lot on these Pirelli compounded tyres, but secondly as well, the really heavy braking zones at the end of straights, especially those with straight line mode. You're talking into turn 11 just before the long loop down the back straight, and of course into turn 14. It's very hard if you're in the slipstream and have that straight line mode active, sometimes just to pick your braking marker appropriately, because you are going to be travelling at a considerably greater speed, maybe varied by about 10 to 15 kilometres each and every lap time that you do. So you've got to try and be confident on that brake pedal, because the last thing you want to do is lock up and go bowling into the cars that find in front of you.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot harder in this game iteration to judge those distances with the greater speed differences, as we see a lot of fighting up ahead. I was just watching Mario Ziwano, who's lost quite a bit of time to the man up ahead, Carlos Galindo, who was fighting with a couple of laps ago, as Cloud and Noah Raza are fighting tooth and nail for P8. But Mario seems to be struggling with the car. We just saw him come up on that long back straight, and he was struggling with the car, almost losing control of it even, and he's losing tenths and tenths and tenths throughout the sectors, and that gap that was about 2 seconds at the start of previous lap now up to 2.9, 3.0 even, with Retmers closing that gap. But it looks like Marius, at least for now, can't keep up with it, although I do feel there is more going on. I can't see any visible damage, but the car does not look as stable as it should be.
No, sometimes there might be technical issues as well. You've got to remember that a lot of these sim racing wheels will have very expensive components that can and do go wrong from time to time, not necessarily within the driver's control, and it could just be a case of maybe the internet's playing a little bit of game, maybe the FPS has dropped to a point where through a certain corner drivers are really struggling. I'm keeping an eye as well on Cloud, who's on the back of Rafael, and in turn Diego and the rest of the field up towards P1. They're looking very close to that Papaya McLaren. They want to try and make a move, as we do see an incredibly wide line by Valentino Labella in P10, wanting to try and maybe get out of some of the dirty air, get out of some of the slipstream before breaking into towards turn 11. But Cloud at the moment looking quite possibly like they want to make a move on our current championship leader.
Well, let's go on board then with the Mercedes man. The gap has gone a little bit bigger. It's about 3/10 as he's moving out of the slipstreams as well. Galindo has managed to get past Laos for P11. If you go down a little bit more, as we saw some of the cars get very close to one another, but looks like Galindo has completed that overtake on the Ferrari and puts that Haas now in P11. And Cloud goes for the very early pit stop. You mentioned lap 9. What about lap 8?
I'd say it went one earlier than I was expecting, but this is a very early pit stop from Cloud. Caught, I think, even most of us off guard. When we talk about the undercut being powerful, sometimes the overcut here in China has been the one that seems to be the driver's favourite. You just jump out ahead of the drivers that you've been chasing and following. It all depends, of course, on how much slipstream, how much dirty air you're caught up in over the course of the race. Keep an eye on Tope up at the top, though. He is within a tenth and a half, or was for the briefest moments, of Lucas Bison, our race leader. So I wonder now if we're going to start seeing moves by the Williams and everybody else, as Raphael drops not one but 2 places down to P10.
Yeah, it looks like Raphael might have had a little bit of a moment as more and more seems to be going on. We're currently trying to see if I can find out more about that, as Kedis and Not are fighting for P3. Not got very close to him, even alongside for a little moment, but at least for now he does stay put. I'm hearing some mentions of the mic differences. I'm currently unable to fix that along in the race, but it looks like I might be a little bit louder than you, TK.
That's all right. I can always speak louder. Worst case scenario, I can talk a little bit louder and try and compensate for what is going on. Keep an eye on Oliver Knott, though. He thought about a move in towards turn 14. The Scuderia Ferrari did move out of the slipstream, trying to put pressure on Giovanni Kennis, who does hold the fastest lap at the moment. We saw Carlos Galando as well, making moves up to 8th fastest, so getting past Valentino Labella, and Lawrence as well, getting past Raphael now, who fairly short. There we go. Papaya is making their way into pit road.
Now, I'll just make sure to sit away a little bit more to compensate for that offset. I think that will help a little bit better. But indeed, more drivers now into pit lane. Raphael, Redmers, and Steg, the top 3 of last week, that are now in pit lane, as we see some more gaps starting to emerge. Still watching Oliver Knott, though, who's about 3/10 down on Kennis. But I think the drivers up ahead might be waiting at least a few more laps, not going for that very early undercut from Cloud, and they'll just find out where he's going to come out in comparison to them. Just have at least those fresher tires at the end of the race. Currently trying to see if there are more gaps going on, but looks like Not is closest to anyone out there on track.
Absolutely, and we'll see as we continue to make our way through the front 4, 5, 6, 7, everyone down to, well, the top 10 are within a second of one another, so they'll have the opportunity to use that overtake mode. And interesting to note that Cloud did gap Raphael by a good 3, no, make that nearly 4 seconds as they make their way out of pit road. So 13th and 14th respectively for the 2 cars that are pit. Redmers as well has made their pit stop this time around, so they're down in P15. But the top 10 remain practically unchanged. The biggest climber, I'd say, so far, Carlos Galindo, who jumped up from 13th place where they once started. They now find themselves in 7th after making a move past Noah Raza at the exit of turn 14 and 15 and in towards 16. Noah Raza will have to try and do a lot, and here come a lot of pit stops then.
Yeah, a lot of pit stops now, so that means we are going to jump over to Cloud, who's just making his way to the hairpin, because he went for the very early pit stop. He has got a 3.8 second lead over Raphael. That is quite a bit, much more than I was expecting earlier on, so I think he's going to get the jump on all the other drivers who are about to leave pit lane, but looks like Cloud is going to take over that provisional race lead later, even though Kennis was in P3 with Not in 4th, but he's got about a second in hand, so he's got a sizable gap. The undercut seems to have worked, but of course he will be struggling with those older tires towards the end of the race. But for now, the undercut has worked, and he's moved up from what I believe was a P9 up to provisionally 1st.
Yeah, started 8th place on the circuit in qualifying and now finds himself, like you said, net race lead compared to everybody else that is yet to pit. Carlos Galindo, if you're wondering why they've got 3.2 seconds off the back of the front 2 runners at the moment, they are the lead driver that started on a hard compound of tyres. So that makes sense as to why they're off pace to the likes of Beisner and Toppe, the V-Carb and the Williams, 1 and 2 respectively at the moment. We've got Noah Raza, Valentino, Laurens and Marios as well as Tsuchubi, who started later. So Tsuchubi and Marios both started on hard compound as well, so they're a little bit off pace as Valentino Labella does get the better of Noah Raza again into turn 14, so very similar to what we saw. Here comes what I thought was going to be a switchback by the V-Car trying to send it down the inside of 16, but instead straight lines it into the pits, and we'll get a fresh set of Pirelli rubber to see their race through.
Yeah, and now the big question is where he's going to come out in comparison to Cloud and Kenneth. He was ahead of Kenneth before. I think he might slot in just behind. I think he's going to come out very close to the likes of Knott and Langrock, although he's going to come out now, and it looks like he will be just behind Langrock. So pretty good prediction on that part. But he's lost quite a few positions, stopping that lap later, now in a net P5. As he will have to fight his way back to the lead of the race. As for the other drivers ahead of Cloud, 6 drivers yet to make their pit stop. So that's Tsuchubi, Mario Ziwano, Laurens Laos, Valentino Labella, Carlos Galindo, and Toppe, who's still leading the race. Toppe was, sorry, in P2 when we started, and I do expect him to come in at the end of this lap.
One thing we've got to bear in mind and remember as we make our way through this race is the tyre offset is going to be incredibly favourable to the likes of Giovanni Kenneth, Oliver Knott, the drivers that stopped that much later than Cloud, because they're already on 4-lap old tyres. It's 2 to the likes of Cloud, Giovanni Kenneth, Oliver Knott as well. Lucas Beisner on 1 lap, they've just come out of pit road. But when we get to lap 26, 7 and 8, those final 3, that is where the tyre offset, I think, is really going to pay dividends for those that have managed this early stage incredibly well. We'll wait to see how this falls. The Alpine here, Giovanni Kenneth, now looking for a move as they make their way down towards turn 14, trying to take away net race lead in towards turn 14, sends it down the inside and clears not 1 but 2 cars as Cloud and Oliver not continue to fight behind them. The Mercedes of Cloud slots back inside into 8th place, but net P2. But here comes Giovanni Kenneth. They can stake a charge now towards everybody else.
Yeah, great overtake from Kenneth, who's done very well in this pit stop sequence, stopping a little bit later than Cloud, together with all the other drivers. And even though he was in P3 before, he does find himself at the net lead of this Grand Prix. As we saw for a moment, Langrock and Beisner swapping places, but swap back as Beisner now is in P11. Of course, 6 drivers yet to make their pit stop. The gap now to the non-stoppers, 3.5 seconds is the gap from Kenneth to Kubi up ahead, and Toppe magically still staying out, TK.
Yeah, he's doing rather well at the moment, still on 12-lap old medium tyres. It'll either be this lap or next, quite possibly, that we'll see the Williams in towards pit road. They won't want to take them much further than that. We'll remind you, of course, Valentino as well as Laurent, both on medium tyres. Everybody else in that top 6 on a set of the hard compounded tyres. So they will be looking to go long compared to the yellow wall tyres. And just worth noting as well, we talk about offsets and we talk about drivers that have gone for alternate strategies as Oliver Knott drops it through turn 13. The Scuderia Ferrari finding his old friend of Barrier, and I'm questioning whether there's damage on that Ferrari car. If not, he's got away very lucky. I think there might be a little bit on the left-hand side. No, damage free for Oliver Knott, but that's going to be a hurt to the confidence.
Yeah, that was a big moment as we still see some wheel banging between the V-Carb and the Audi. The Audi now going ahead of Lucas Beisner. So we've seen a bit of swapping for places. Laurens Laos is now in pit lane. But yeah, Kenneth still leading this pack ahead of Cloud. Then it's Langrock. Then now Beisner. Not dropped down behind Raphael, who is in net P6, with Fer still ahead of that. And now currently check-in. Toppe is still staying out. The gap from Knott to Raza is about 3.6. But I think we'll see Toppe slot in about 2 seconds behind Oliver Knott. And surely he will have to come into pit lane at the end of this lap, if not the next. But I do think the end of this lap might be the right moment for him. What, regardless of everything, is the best thing to watch out is this current pack, because they've now fully caught up with Takumi for P5.
They have, and Takumi could either be a help or a hindrance. That is going to be the major question that I think everyone will be asking as they make their way up towards turn 11 for the 13th time in the Chinese Grand Prix here in PSGL. And Tsubi, of course, on a hard compound of tyres as they make their way through turns 13. Luckily, where Oliver Knott dropped it last time around, we do see Giovanni Kennis now to the inside of the exit of turn 13. The Alpine does make the move past, and here comes Cloud as well, and the rest of the drivers just behind, wanting to stay in the slipstream. The Mercedes moves to the inside line, gets the move done nice and easily. Dennis Landrock thinks about it as well, but can't quite send it on this occasion. They thought about it for half a moment, but decided it wasn't in their best interest. Toppe and Valentino Labella both into pit road now, the last of the medium runners, and that just leaves two hard runners up in front, Carlos and Marios.
Yes, indeed. So Carlos and Mario still out there on track, but I want to see where Toppe is going to come out. We predicted about 2 seconds behind the likes of Knott. He actually just slots in ahead of Noah Raza, so that gap rather is about 2.5 to 3 seconds. I think it's more 3 seconds indeed that he has now come out of. He will have much fresher hards, but he will need to catch up with him quite quickly and has to go for quite some overtakes, being now in net P9. I believe that is indeed correct. Ken is still leading that pack. The gap to the leader, 13 seconds. Galindo and Ioanu still having to make their pit stops. They started on the hards. All the other drivers now out there on hards, as Knott has gone for an overtake move onto Rafael. They're still fighting tooth and nail. Side by side they go, but the inside line for the Ferrari man bears to be just enough, and he is ahead of the McLaren.
There's a lot of bravery there from Rafael Kuntz as they try to go for the switchback on Oliver Knott as they made their way through that section of 7, 8 and 9. Looked for half a moment that they were going to be able to pull it off, but on this occasion Oliver Knott reholds P8. And you mentioned Toppe, net P7, P8 at the moment, of course. Takubi yet to pit along with the front two runners of Carlos and Marios. Giovanni Kennis still net race leader, but not under, well, not free by any means, as Lucas Bison does send a move down the inside of Cloud in towards that hairpin, a favoured overtaking spot for a lot of our drivers over the course of this race so far. So Bison are back into fourth, which is of course net P2, looking to try and take away the lead of the championship in towards the opening quarter. The Alpine having to go defensive from Bison. Does well to hold the middle of the circuit. Bison in that V-car just being patient though, and we know what they can race like as we make our way into the second half of this race.
And in the meantime, we mentioned that after the pit stop, Toppe was about 3 seconds down on the other drivers. That gap is now 1.6 as he's very close to the back of Takubi. He's actually gone around him already at the end of Sector 1. And now the gap to Rafael 1.5 before he meets up with that main train of drivers. So the net P8, as you indeed mentioned, now with the overtake on Takubi done as well. So Rafael will be his next target, but Toppe with those fresher tires seems to have quite a bit of time in hand, and where he was already very strong on the mediums, seems to be even stronger on the hards.
Absolutely right, and it's gone from strength to strength over the course of this race so far, and as they build that confidence in this set of compound, we are going to see more and more moves made. Noah Raza does get back past Tsubi as well, who is still yet to pit. They've done 15 laps on a set of hard compounded tyres, and off in the distance, Oliver Knott again having issues as they made their way through turn 13. The literal opposite of what happened last time before, where they spun to the inside. This time, an extreme excursion into the outside track, Lewis. They managed to keep the car in one piece and pointing in the right direction. But if you're on board with that car, surely something's wrong on board with Oliver Knott. Is that a setup thing? Is that a driver thing? Because it has to be one of those two.
It has to be one of those two indeed, but it's not doing the Ferrari man any good so far, as we see Beisner and Kennis now fight for the net race lead, with Beisner having the inside line. Kennis trying to go for the switchback, but will have to stay behind and will have to stay put as Beisner completes that overtake. Galindo is still the only one out there together with Takubi, yet to make a pit stop. Toppe has fully caught up with the other drivers, so we will be watching Toppe a little bit more as he's hoping to make his charge through the field up ahead, because he is on the freshest tires. Let's actually see what the tire life is for all the drivers. So Beisner is on 5 lap old hards. For Kennis, that's 6, 8 lap olds for Cloud. But moving down to Toppe, that's 2 lap old hards compared to the 6, and I dare almost not to say it, the amount of laps that Rafael has done on the hards. But Toppe definitely on much fresher tires here.
Yeah, Rafael, 7 on this set of tyres. This is the 8th lap that they will have had them on for. But of course, we talk about drivers, they can go incredibly long distances on these hard compounded tyres. And actually, as we make our way down towards that hairpin corner, we do just see in the distance, I believe that is Carlos Galindo, our race leader at the moment. They're on hard tyres. 16 laps they will have completed on these next time around. And we have got yellow flags in the final sector. That is Valentino Labella, who's had a bit of an issue coming out of turn 13, starting to find moves made left, right and centre. Laurent does get past Redmers as well, promoting themselves up to 12th place. And Carlos makes his way in towards pit road. Then Lucas Beisner, after 17 laps of racing, is your official race leader, being chased by Giovanni Kennis, as Cloud is under pressure from Dennis Langrock as well.
Yeah, Cloud under huge amounts of pressure as Tope is trying to go for a massive switch back there, but the Ferrari just in the way. We saw a little tap towards the end of the hairpin. Oh, that is Rafael Kunz going off. I'm not sure if there was contact with Oliver Knott there, but that McLaren doesn't steer right all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Just looking at the replay that I got, the stream's a little bit behind on my screen. Penalties coming left, right and centre for Rafael as they got 10 and a 3, so 13 in total for the McLaren driver. Not quite sure they're exactly all four. I'm guessing track limits was one of them. That was the 3-second minimum. I don't know what the 10 seconds were. I'll look into that in the next few seconds. But it did look like he slightly came across the car just behind him. Maybe that was Top A and they just a little bit of contact. It's hard to tell without having the drivers on board.
Yeah, maybe we'll hear a little bit about that later on towards the end of the race and once we read the driver chat. But for now, we are watching Tope get to the back of Oliver Knott, looking for an overtake into P6. And he has that overspeed. He is going to move over to the inside line. Oliver Knott is not defending, and Tope has already completed that overtake before the hairpin has been reached. So he's now made his way up into P6. Just 5 more drivers to go, but he definitely has that speed in the Williams.
That he does, and he'll have to try and benefit from this set of tyres. He went completely late compared to the rest of the field around him. He's done 13 laps on his mediums rather, right from race start. This will be his 5th lap on this set of hard compounded tyres. Rafael in towards pit road then. I did some investigation. It was a 10-second penalty for corner cutting, and then another 3-second penalty for multiple track limit violations, which seems a little bit harsh. To the Papaya pilots, we do see Laurent trying to get the better. I believe that is one of the lapped cars. That might be Drax, it is indeed, who is stuck in the middle of this lead pack now, so not necessarily having a good day at the office is Drax. We'll be hoping just to try and drive home and hope for some early retirements, because we are with 11, make that 10.5 laps to go here in Shanghai. And at the moment, the front battle is going to only hot up as we make our way through towards that incumbent 28.
Yeah, in the meantime, we are watching Dennis Langrock currently 2/10 away from Cloud up ahead as he has a little cheeky look down the inside, but he's not trying to go for any moves just yet. But with 10 laps left on the board, it will be a few more laps before these drivers are really going to be fighting for it and swapping places like crazy, trying to get that race win here tonight, as we potentially have 7 drivers going for that race win, with the gap to Noah Raza 3.8 just being a little bit too much, as we have Tope diving to the inside. That's a big dive. That is contact with Dennis Langrock, and that is not great from Tope, who is going for a massive charge, but this surely will net him a penalty.
That was a really interesting scenario. Lost his front wing heading down the back straight before they even got to the braking zone. So there was some contact before that even happened, and then misjudged their speed in towards the braking, in towards turn 14, locked up the front tyres. I think Dennis Langrock there, the unfortunate outcome of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm just trying to keep an eye on Langrock. Doesn't look like they've got any front wing damage, so might have been spared slightly, but those tyres they were doing oh so well to look after will certainly be feeling a little bit rougher as we head into the final 10 laps.
Yeah, and this makes the fight for the race win just a little bit of a smaller fight. From 7, we are now down to, well, at least 6, although I wonder if Tope will be able to fight with that, with his front wing end plate damage. We see quite clearly that on the right-hand side, driver view, left-hand side, missing his front wing end plate. But for the drivers up ahead, they're not too bothered with that. Beisner still leads ahead of Kennis. Then it's Cloud and Fair. Tope still finds himself in P5, but if we look at the top 3 from last week out, Redmer is currently in P11, Steg down in 14th, and for Rafael it's even a P15. So when you were on the podium last week, that is no guarantee for a podium the week after.
Absolutely, as we make our way through, and if you're Lucas Bison's engineer at the moment, what are you telling him? That two of probably the closest competitors were looking incredibly strong, have managed to somehow take each other out in towards that hairpin. You'll be sending a sigh of relief potentially to your driver, knowing that, yes, there's still a lot of drivers around him that are trying to be competitive, the likes of Kenneth and Cloud, with Diego maybe just falling off the bandwagon a little bit. You can see him just cresting over that important 1 second marker. We'll get a better view of that next time around as we head on to lap 21 with 8 laps to go. But Kenneth and Cloud have got an important job to do here. They've got to keep Bison humble through the course of the next 9 laps, because if Lucas is allowed to run away with this, they certainly will do.
Yeah, and currently fastest lap time set is by Rafael, of course, after stopping for fresh mediums. But he's got a mountain to climb with a 5.3 second gap and then more multiple second gaps to the drivers up ahead. So points seem almost out of the equation for him tonight, sadly. But surely must have had enough damage and the tires must have been shot enough for him to make that decision to go into pit lane, as we see a little lockup from Beisner at the start of the field, but not costing him anything at all, really. So that is great news for him. Let's move back to Tope, who, despite that front wing end plate damage, is able to keep Diego Ferrer in check and actually get very close to the back of that Cadillac. He might go for an overtake now, even as he's using quite a bit of battery. We'll have to make sure he judges that braking zone correctly. There is contact again! And that might have been a commentator's curse as Ferrer spins out.
Happens so much in these 2026 regulations where drivers are just trying to lift and coast to save a little bit more battery. The closing speeds are so much more exaggerated within this field of racing, and that, I think, is exactly what has happened between Tope and the Cadillac, and I think we'll see a Stewards report about that. It'll be a fairly slam dunk case in the favour of Diego Ferrer, because Tope has just misjudged that approach speed, gone straight into the back of the American team, and as a result, Diego Ferrer has gone spinning around more than a Ferris wheel. So up at the front, Tope now the front, well, within the front 4. Oliver Knott is still there in spirit. Now they are half a second off the back of the Williams in front of them, but we have to talk about the unfortunate luck that Oliver Knott has had through turn 13. One time it was to the inside, another time it was to the outside. What is going on in that Ferrari car?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what is going on with that Ferrari. Hopefully we will hear a little bit from him towards the end of this race, but for now he's at least staying within that lead train, so that is great news for him. But I think in a moment Tope is going to start losing more and more time once those tires come of age a little bit more. He will still have fresher compounds in the tires, the drivers up ahead, but yeah, because of that front wing end plate that is missing, he will start to lose a little bit more time in the laps to come. That might mean that there's an overtaking opportunity for Oliver Knott, and he surely will have to make that overtake before that gap from Tope to Cloud comes too much to overcome for him, so he can at least mix himself up in a 4-horse fight for that race win, because for now it seems that Cloud, Kenneth and Beisner will be going for it.
It'll be looking that way. If you're Tope, you know that you've got that penalty coming. You've got to give it everything in these last 7 laps of racing here in Shanghai. Because you know when that 10-second and 5-second, even 3-second penalty here in PSGL is somewhat heartbreaking and somewhat race-ending. So if you're in the Williams camp, you are telling your driver to do absolutely everything to try and gain a few positions in the last few laps of this race. Oliver Knott is not going to make it easy for him, though. He's still 4/10 off the back of the Williams car, leaving what is going to be that traditional front 3 to try and continue to pull away. You've got the likes of Beisner, Kenneth and Cloud as well. Those 3 drivers will be looking to try and gain some separation from the Williams behind. Maybe not only for their personal safety from what we've seen in the last few laps, but also to turn what is a 5-horse race into a more traditional 3-horse race to the latter stages of this.
And we're now on board with Oliver Knott, who's fighting quite a bit with that car. Just had a massive snap coming into the double left-hander, but has kept that car on track nicely as he's trying to get closer and closer to that Williams off Tope, but definitely has to be careful putting that power down. Again, a massive snap that he has in the long right-hander, so Knott really has to be careful here as he now makes his way down that long backstretch. But look at that, the gap's now gone up to 8/10. Ken is actually getting very close to the back of Lucas Beisner, and I think in a moment or so we're going to see that fight between the top 3 come to play and emerge as we are heading into the final 6 laps of this race. We've now entered lap 23 of 28, and I think the TK, this is the moment where the drivers are going to start to fight for it.
This is absolutely crunch time for each and every one of our drivers. You can see Tope again as we cross the line and in towards that opening section of the first 3 corners, well and truly teetering across that 1 second mark. I think he has just held on to the overtake mode this time around. We can have a look, well, I can have a look on board, and he has indeed managed to hold it for another lap, and that is paying dividends as we make our way through the course of this lap so far. But the moment he loses it, he's going to be under so much pressure from Oliver Knott in the last few laps. He just knows what he's got to do. He doesn't have to be fast here. He just has to stay in the wheel tracks of Cloud in front, not allow Oliver Knott past, and the likes of Dennis Langrock, who are out of that overtake mode, will be battling with Diego Ferreira. We do see Carlos Galino getting the better of Noah Raza, up for 8th place, so the Haas car getting a promotion up to that spot. The V-Cub drops down to 9th, and again is within the capabilities of Laurent, who's not far behind them.
Yeah, we do have to keep Carlos Galindo in mind a little bit as well. Of course, he is one of the drivers that started on the hards, has now gone over to the mediums. Pretty much all the drivers, I think all the drivers ahead of him are on much older hards. The gap is 2.5 to Ferrer and then Langrock. So I think P6 might be in reach, but the gap to the leading queue is about 6 seconds. And with the 6 laps that they still have left, will be 5 in a moment's notice. I think will be too much to overcome for him, but definitely P6 still on the cards for Galindo, and aside from that we will be moving back to the main fight where Kennis is approaching within 3/10 of Beisner, but is staying put really within 3 to 4 tenths for the last couple of laps.
Yeah, just as I say, the yellow flags in the 3rd and final. Raphael having more issues down at the hairpin, and I wonder what has happened to him this time around, and has again kept that front wing intact. Drax lets him through, of course, is the lap down on notably the entire field, very deep in towards the pit lane, and does manage to keep it out as both themselves and Redmers make their way into the pit. So maybe a little bit of suspicion here that both of them caught up in that instant in towards the penultimate corner, and as both dutifully retire. That was almost to be expected with how few laps we have remaining. 4.5 to go here at the Shanghai International Circuit. The front battle is still a 5-car fight. Tope has done incredibly well to gain half a second and get back within the wheel tracks of Cloud in front. You mentioned the drivers that started on the hard compounded tyres. I think it is game over for Carlos here, unless we see a very late safety car, because the medium runners have done so well in their opening stint and then the early stages of their hard tyre runs. But I'm going to keep an eye on Tope, the youngest of those tyres in that front 5. 11 laps compared to 14, 15 and 17 around him.
Yeah, he's definitely on the youngest tires compared to the other drivers, and it would be much easier if he didn't have that damage on this car. The only driver of the top 5 who has visible damage, although I'm not sure if there's any damage to that Ferrari of Knott, who's been struggling a little bit coming through. But yeah, for Galindo, I mean, he started outside of the provisional points, I believe, and he's now already made his way up to P8. His tactic is coming of age quite well, and if he can continue his charge forward, he might be able to settle for P6, as we mentioned a lap ago. But it looks like the gap to Diego Ferrer is stabilizing, so it might also be that the prime sort of moments for the mediums have come to an end, and that might leave him vulnerable from attacks later on down the line from Noah Raza and Laos. Eshteg and Takubi and Drax now get past Redmers 2 on the board. They, of course, DNF'd earlier on at the end of the previous lap. Not sure if there was contact with them, but what I did want to mention about Raphael, because he's had a couple of moments, I wonder if there's anything wrong with his brake pedal.
Potentially, and that again is
Oh!
we see more. That's Tope who's gone deep in towards turn 11. That was unexpected from the driver that has driven oh so well, but maybe that little bit of damage I think they picked up earlier just coming in to be their nemesis. They have allowed Oliver Knott through, who does successfully manage to navigate turn 13, who's been their arch nemesis over the course of this race so far. But notably, and keep an eye on this, Myth, because they're over 1 second off the back of Cloud. That overtake detection point is as they make their way in towards turn 16. I think they might be able to hold on. We'll see the limit as they come across the line. No, they're not going to get overtake. Oliver Knott is going to be very vulnerable heading on to 26.
Yeah, so let's go on board with Oliver Knott because Top A is coming for it. Top A is gunning for it, sending it down the inside, and I think Knott is doing the right decision by trying to keep the distance between the cars a little bit more because of that damage that Top A does have, and it makes it a little bit easier for him to just shoot wide a little bit and, well, maybe punt him off as a result. But now has to settle for P5, and it looks like we have a new fight starting to emerge for P4 with Top A and not going very wide at the end of Sector 1. That is his hopes for a potential podium or race win over. Top A will have to do quite a bit of work to claw himself back into the top 3, but looks like we have a 3-horse race now going on between Cloud, Kennis, and Beisner. With 3 laps to go, this fight is surely going to kick off any moment now.
Top A needs a miracle in these final 2.5 laps if he wants to try and stay or get onto the podium at the end of lap 28. Lucas Beisner has looked in control since they took command after that first round of pit stops. Giovanni Kennis, who had held the fastest lap for the longest time, it has been stolen away by Raphael right at the end, who pitted for a fresh set of mediums just to try and take that away from them. Smart tactics, if I do add on. And Cloud, who's been a bit of an underlier, went for that very early stop, only 7 laps on a set of the medium compound, has done now 19 on a set of hard compound tyres and will have done 21 by the time we get to the end of this race. So Beisner in a really good position, has the best tyres of the front 3. Unless Top A pulls out a miracle here on the penultimate lap of racing, I think he's out of it. It's not enough to just have raw pace anymore. That overtake point and that overtake availability that you need, especially when you've got a front 3 that you're trying to chase, is almost critical to your race.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also for Cloud, with those older hards, it's going to be very hard to take the fight to Kennis and Beisner. But let's not forget, he was not within that top 3 when he started his pit stop sequence. So that earlier pit stop managed to get him some places. He stayed out of trouble. And I think that crucially means that he is now looking at a P3 at minimum in this race here tonight, which would be a great result for him and also the best result of the season after, well, last week he couldn't quite materialize on a podium position, but this week definitely seems to be on the cards for him. Another driver who that is very much the case for is Lucas Beisner. Just fell short last week with a P4, but with 2 laps to go, he's still leading that race, and it doesn't seem like Kennis is getting all too much closer to the back of that V-carb. So if he can hold on for just another lap, he will be winning this race here tonight, TK.
That is how it's going to go for Beisner. He has to try and hold on. The question, well, I've got in my mind almost immediately, are we going to see any overtake mode games? We see DRS games all the time in days of old, back when DRS was a thing, even though straight line mode is kind of just DRS 2.0, but I won't mention that on a broadcast. Are we going to see Lucas Beisner? No, I thought he might try and play some games onto the final lap of racing, because Giovanni Kennis, if I was him, I'd have charged up as much of the battery as I could have done, and if we ride on board, we can actually see how little battery he's got heading on to this final lap of racing. Top A picks up a 3-second penalty as well for multiple track limit violations, so that will see his hopes and chances of a podium well and truly gone, and Oliver Knott, knowing that he could secure 4th place here this afternoon. But the front 3 continue to march on through 4 and through 5. Lucas Beisner still in a very controlling and commanding position, knowing that his drivers around him do not have much battery. Cloud is practically out of this. They're too far back to send a move unless they get 100% charge state heading into that long back straight. That is probably the only scenario in which I see at the moment that Mercedes trying to do anything to disrupt this front 2. Of course, anything could happen. Kennis could break late into turn 14. That is the joy of Formula 1 and the joy of sim racing as well, where anything can happen in these moments. We will watch with eager anticipation as we round up towards turn 11, 12 and 13. And after that, it'll be 3 more corners to go to decide who wins here at the Shanghai International Circuit.
Yeah, we're now on board with Kennis, who's looking to close that gap onto Beisner up ahead, but the gap now almost a second as they move on to the backstretch. He has got quite a bit of battery to him, and along with this fight, we're also looking at the gaps between 4th and 5th, currently 3.4 seconds. It's not has to get within 3, but look at that gap. That gap is surely too much to overcome. No mistakes made by Beisner in the final corner, and let's move over to the man who has dominated this qualifying session, has dominated the race, had to give away of the race lead for a moment after the pit stop sequence. He is the strongest here tonight. He takes the race win here in Shanghai, and he takes the lead in the championship. He finishes ahead of of Kenneth and Cloud. Top 8 comes home in 4, 6/10 ahead of Not. Then it's Langrock, Ferrer, Galindo, Laos, and I think it will be Noah Raza who will be the final point finisher. But definitely some investigations will be launched into those contact moments with top 8. I wonder if he keeps P4, but it looks like the top 3 is at least set. But what a race win from Lucas Beisner.
Absolutely fantastic from Beisner. Had command of that right from the very start. And an interesting trend we're starting to see here in PCF3. The winner, or the driver that gets pole position, has gone on to win 2 times out of 2. The driver that gets the fastest lap has DNF'd in both the opening 2 rounds. So I'm not, wishing to cast spells upon PCF3, but this is the scenario in which we find ourselves at the moment.
Exactly. Another thing that we've noticed is the driver's still getting used to these cars a little bit. We see that because the speed difference are a little bit bigger, it's also harder to judge what your opponent is going to do. Are they going to save a little bit more? Are they braking a little bit harder? What are the speed differences going to be? And that has resulted so far in the opening 2 rounds in a little bit more contact than we are used to. But once again, here are the full race results, and I'll take you to the top 10 once more. Even though I did so a moment ago, we will do so again. Lucas Beisner picks up the race win and championship lead ahead of Kenneth, Cloud and Top 8. P5 goes to Oliver Knott in the Scuderia Ferrari HP. Then it's Dennis Langrock ahead of Ferrer, Galindo, Laos and Noah Raza. And outside the points we find Valentino Labella, Marziwano, Wojtek Steg, Takubi, Drax, and then out of the race, Redmers and Rafael Kunz, who was our championship leader up until this race, but will be dropping a place or 2 as a result of this race. Now, quite action-packed. It was TK. How was it to be back here at PSGL?
It feels so good to be back, man. I'm looking forward to PCF1 starting again, and actually for me, this is a really nice way to get back into it. Seeing some new faces, some old faces that I recognise as well, and I really wish you guys the best for the rest of the season, because if tonight has shown me anything, there is going to be some great racing to watch in PCF3, and if you haven't watched, subscribed, liked, followed the YouTube channel already, you definitely should do so you don't miss these.
Exactly, and as we speak, the qualifying sessions in F2 and F4 have gone underway as well, so make sure to tune in with those in a moment too. We're currently waiting to see if our top 3 would like to go for some interviews so we can have a little chat with them. I especially hope to be hearing from Lucas Beisner in a moment. Ironically, he is the main driver that you spoke out before the race, and he ends up winning this race, TK.
Well, he's had practice this week already at China in a race format. Pretty much the same. It was full qualifying and a 50% race. But he's had the scenario in which he found himself in. He went a little bit late on the pit stop this time around, which I think is what his downfall was as we headed into the race prior in the week. So he's learned from his mistakes, and that's absolutely what every driver should learn to do. I'd love to speak to Oliver Knott as well. I know he finished in 5th, but I just want to see maybe how his mental state is doing after not only spinning to the inside, but then somehow almost finding the wall on the outside as well.
Yeah, he just mentioned in the driver chat the spun twice, went straight on once, calling it generational, and but he's glad that this race is over, and I think he won't be too disappointed that he's still picking up some nice points in P5, so that is 6 points added to his tally, so not too bad at all. We've already heard back from Kenneth, who sadly can't do the interviews here tonight, but hoping to hear back from the other drivers in a moment's notice before we end of the stream, but that gives us a little bit of time to look ahead at the calendar, because boy, we've got some great races coming up ahead. The Madrid ring is not too far away. Let's actually move over to the calendar, because I do have that on the overlays. Let's move over. Do you have the calendar in front of you, TK, or shall I take it?
I do have it in front of me.
Then take it away.
So of course we've had the first 2 rounds, Britain and China. They are done and dusted, no more for our drivers to worry about before heading across to the Ardennes Forest as we head to Spa-Francorchamps next time around in what will be one of the best races on the calendar in this generation. Drivers hitting maximum 7th gear on the run down through Blanchimont and in towards bus stop. It is exhilarating racing from finish to finish. We then have a break week on our hands where drivers can rest and recuperate before heading to the all-new Madrid, where drivers will be tested to their limits among track limits and others, where the walls are quicker and faster than it feels like at Monaco, before heading to more open grounds up in the Styrian Hills for the Austrian Grand Prix, before a long run down towards the final weeks where no break weeks have been added by the looks of things, with Imola kicking off our Italian rotation before heading over to Viva Las Vegas at September the 3rd. We then head to Mexico City, the highest altitude Formula 1 race, before then heading to Interlagos and the Autodromo Jose Carlos space, which will be an absolutely fantastic endeavour. We then finish with 2 rounds. Bahrain, one of the most classics on the calendar, where drivers will be tested across the desert sun before heading down under in good old US of A for the Circuit of the Americas and the Texan Grand Prix.
That is the counter indeed, so thank you for taking us through that as great as you always can, TK, so thank you so much for that. In the meantime, we've heard back from Beisner, who is sadly also unable to do the interview tonight, so can't have it all tonight, TK, but it's been quite a good run.
It has. It's been fantastic, and hey, drivers are probably trying to cool down after that race. I know it's still quite warm in most of mainland Europe and here in the UK as well, so I think they'll probably be chucking ice down the back of their shirts trying to make sure that they're not overheating, but it's always a pleasure to come back and call these races.
It's always a pleasure indeed. And as you already mentioned, next week we will be heading out to the Ardennes Forest, the Bulge there, where we'll be driving at Spa-Francorchamps, one of the most iconic tracks out there on the calendar, where this time around we can take, let's see, it's Pouhon, we can take flat out, which is something we haven't seen since 2013, when it was Fernando Alonso who was able to do so in the real world, but that was due to his engine not being on par with all the other drivers. This time it is because that is as fast as we go with these new generation of cars, so it will be more exciting perhaps to attack this corner for some of the drivers, although having to lift a little bit and taking 30 extra kilometers through that corner might even be better, but with so many overtaking opportunities, I think it is going to be one for the books, DK.
It always is. Spa is one of those circuits that delivers from start to finish. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers tested in very unusual scenarios, the likes of the Les Combes chicane, Le Fagnes, as you make your way down the hill, because weight transfer on these cars is a little bit different to what we've had in previous generations. We've seen struggles there in real life where a lot of drivers found the wall. Lewis Hamilton, of course, I think Pierre Gasly as well last weekend out. So when we head into the sim, we head into the races there, I think we're going to see a very similar endeavour where drivers might just be caught out if they haven't done too much practice.
Yeah, once more before we are going to tune out in a moment's notice, make sure to stay up to date with us, but also stay up to date with the other tiers, with F4 and F2 now nearing the end of their qualifying session and about to start their races. Because for us, we are drawing to a close of this stream here tonight. Sadly, no interviews tonight, perhaps some and more next week when we go to Belgium. TK, thank you so much for stepping in tonight. Once more, I really hope you enjoyed it.
I really, really did. Pleasure is absolutely all mine. And Myth, it's been fantastic to be alongside you, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to cue us out. So thank you so much for watching us here at Season 43 PSGL PCF3. Next week, we'll be back in the hills of Spa. Until then.